I welcome Mr. Amitabh, Chief Executive Officer, Digital India Bhashini Division, Digital India Corporation, Government of India, to kindly join us on the stage and help us navigate through this important and relevant topic in the present scenario.
First of all, I would like to thank, Jagran Media for inviting me here. Let me, try to actually give a wide-scope note on what Bhashini is or stands for all about, and what does it, bring to the country. Bhashini, as its name stands, is Bhasha Interface for India. And as you are aware that, India is approximately, about 100 odd languages spoken by 100,000 plus people. And out of that, 22 languages are enshrined into constitution as the scheduled languages. And at the first space, Bhashini is actually going to tackle this 22 languages for translation, right? This project was announced by Honorable Finance Minister as a part of budget speech about 2.5 years back, and we actually embarked into a journey of translating or transcending the language barrier, using artificial intelligence and machine learning as the base criteria. At the first stage, we had about, a problem statement which was much larger, means 22 languages. We wanted all the 22 languages, that anybody who speaks all those 22 languages should actually, get translated into computer. That means computer should be able to recognize those 22 languages, and that's about automatic speech recognition. Then if the language is encoded into the computer, right, with in that particular language, then it should be there should be in a position to translate it to other languages. That means the other 22 languages. That's about machine translation. And then we are talking about if the computer has those 22 languages encoded, it should be able to speak out those 22 languages. That's talking about text to speech. And then we have a lot of printed material which is all around. So those printed material needs to be understood not as an image but as a characters in that. So it is about optical character recognition. And you have the named entities which needs to be recognized. So these were the 5 basic problems which we had, which we were ventured out to solve. And, we looked at at that point of time, AI and ML was still a laboratory or a research subject. Today, of course, it is democratized. So we went across to all the institutes which has language and AI as their, footprint, and found that about 70 odd institutes came forward to solve this problem. Those 70 odd institutes were divided into 8 groups. And we divided this 22 combinatorial 2 problem and 22 combinatorial 1 problem into 8 projects, right? Each project was led by one of the premier higher education institute as the research institute to do it. Then there was an offshoot of this problem, which was basically related to data. If you want to train the AI model, you should have digital data. And the digital data was available on 6-7 languages, not on 22 languages, right? And we then ventured into a system through which we created the digital data from the field. And, it was basically a long exercise. And we had about 200 translators who actually went across with the mobile app on the field, and they captured the data from the field, speech data as well as text data, and tried to create what we call as a parallel corpus. Once this was created, you have the digital data, the AI models was built up. Then there was another offshoot of problem, which was basically saying that these models have to be delivered as a service to be used by people. So So we then created a platform called National Hub for Language Technology, and that actually renders this AI models as a service for the people, startup, research organization, industries, governments for the usage. The, if you look at this particular crux of the idea, it is basically taking you to a track where, you are in a position to use, uh, if you are knowing one language, you don't have to bother about what is the language other person speaks, writes, or uses. Thing. Once we did this, and currently we are about 12 languages on speech and 22 on text, and the number of languages are increasing, right? We are, on the track to actually make this, divide which was there about languages go over, and we would perhaps be bridging this in totality. Now, when we are trying to do this, when I basically look at the speech part of it, we are in a position to do a speech-to-speech thing, or computer is able to understand what you speak. You also are bridging the digital divide, in the sense that you can make the digital world do what you want them to do. And also, since it is text to speech, the computer or the digital world can also interact with you. So in some sense, we are now able to, at specific places, bridge the digital divide as well. And when you are using voice as a medium, you don't need to read and write. So the literacy divide is also getting bridged up. And when this mission started, we thought we would just translate, but at this point in time, it is being used as a very different vehicle altogether. So let me, take you through some use cases. Under PM Kisan Samman Nidhi program, Prime Minister actually, transfers 3 tranches of, money to the farmers. And it is about 11 crore farmers. There are bound to be certain grievances which might happen because of whatever administrative or otherwise reasons. Now, earlier, if there was a problem which came into 1% of the people, which means 1% would mean about 1 lakh odd, they would perhaps be going to various offices to figure that out. Now, today, we had created a PM Kisan e-Mitra application on which the farmer is actually asking, "Mera bhugtan nahi hua, mujhe bataiye," in his own native language. And the chatbot responds to him saying that, "Shayad aapka आधार बैंक अकाउंट से लिंक नहीं है, या आपके ज़मीन के पंजीकरण में कुछ प्रॉब्लम आई है." So he is able to know the cause of the challenges which he is facing immediately. So that's one thing. Second thing which was basically there, and I'm talking about very deep use cases, again related to farmer, was that various Indian banks actually give loans to the farmers based on their land parcel value. Now, the land records in all the states are in vernacular language, and the banks understand Hindi, English mostly, as far as documentation is concerned. So, what we did with Reserve Bank of India, Reserve Bank of India Innovation Hub, who created that fintech platform, that the land records were fetched and transliterated and presented to the bank on an online basis using the transliteration facility. And given that integration happened, theoretically in all sense, a farmer can apply for loan and can get it at any point in time with, what used to take perhaps about 3 to 4 months now can be taken up, in a week's time, or theoretically even in 1 hour's time, if the documentation is okay. The idea of this particular solution, which is deeply, earlier the farmer used to go to a translator, he would translate, he will spend some money, of course, finding out translator was the ownership which he had. Sometimes banks used to help, and that is how the things moved across. Then we moved into another section of the thing, which is financial segment again. And if, we took a persona who is basically a migrant worker. He is actually working through the day. And the evening he wants to say that mummy ko 100 rupees transfer kar do, and it all happens. We did that particular use case study on that, and we actually have now implemented this in Hindi and English, where you can dial a number, the number would ask you, what do you want to do? You say कि पैसे भेजना है, he will ask you what is the amount and the phone number, and the transaction will go through after you put in the PIN. We had some challenges with respect to false calls, so now what we have implemented is the IVR calls back, and then it confirms the transaction from you, and it goes away. So that was the third persona which we took. The fourth one which we took was, we are talking, generally whenever it's a law enforcement agency, and generally when the investigation officer goes to the field, he is basically looking at, looking at the crime scene and trying to record something by his hand and saying that, this is what is happening in the crime scene. From now onwards, he would have an application by which he will go to the crime scene and he will keep saying that मैंने ये देखा, ये देखा, ये देखा, and it will get transcribed, and the report is then later generated with minor additions, which is there. This again gives a huge, there's no information loss, because what he says, and it gets transcribed. The time which was earlier taken to file the report gets vastly reduced. Then we went across to say that how do we benefit other people? So if you actually look at it, all our case diaries or all the judiciary in the district courts work on vernacular languages. The case diary is vernacular. When it moves to High Court, it is in English or Hindi or, maybe some other language. We have worked with NCRB to actually translate the case diary completely when the case moves to High Court, which eventually means that, the time which was basically being invested in translating the case diary, finding a translator, translating the case diary, vetting it, and then coming back for the hearing goes away. So I just described 5. There are many more. I can take a few more. The Railway Madat, which is basically the grievance redressal of railways, have now gone online on multiple languages. So railways get connected to the people on the ground in their regional language, right? We have incorporated text right now so that you can type in regional language, and soon it will be voice-based integration where you can speak out and give your grievances. The National Train Inquiry System has gone online on vernacular languages. Again, a huge connect to the last mile of regional language people. In Rajasthan, the birth and death records were recorded on, digitally, but unfortunately, whenever it was recorded digitally, it was having a lag because people were not willing to type, even if it was, the tools were provided. So we added voice to that particular application, which is called Pehchan application, and now nurse can speak out and say that what is the name of the father, mother, time and date of birth, and the entire record gets created at that point in time itself, which can be edited in minor fashion. So I can go on and on because we are almost working with about 50 odd customers right now. Our list is growing to very large, plus we have 10 states already engaged with us in some form or the other. Agriculture happens to be a huge use case. Rural development happens to be another use case. So I think while we have the low-hanging fruits, which are video translation, document translation, website translation, which are no-brainers, which we all want to do, these are the use cases where we are in a position and we have now started creating impacts to the last mile. So we'll be happy to work with anyone who has identified a use case on this particular area. And with voice, you perhaps have to imagine the persona and also the user journey. The user journey will be absolutely different when you are incorporating voice. And look at it from a proof of concept point of view, which I feel will be successful over a period of time. And hopefully, we should be in a position to deploy many things right way. So that's all I wanted to say. I will be happy to take any questions, a few of them, so that, I can clarify any doubts. Yeah.
If the industry wants to work with your organization, how can we do that? And if these language models are available through API, and what are the sort of terms and conditions for those type of things?
Currently in the incubation process by the government, the language model, all the language translation models are available through APIs. What you need to do is to send across a mail, which is there on website co-dibd@digitalindia.gov.in, and you will be granted the APIs. Of course, we would like to know your use case. We would like to know the load you will generate so that, we are in a position to take it. Mind you one thing, when we are working with all of this, see the AI models which we have developed are developed in the certain data sets which we had. When we went with that data set and AI model to say payments domain, as we did for NPCI, the accuracy dropped to an extent of 50%. We then went back to the field, collected the data and retrained the model, and they launched the service when the accuracy went to 95% plus. So my point which I want to make, the reason why I told you this story, is that every domain has its own glossary, right? So when you do this particular integration, you might start finding some challenges. The good part with you is that all the models have been developed indigenously, and we have the possibility of training this model, and we are hungry to train this model to a particular domain so that the people can be served better. So, it would be also an exercise if you do a POC with us to build the nation to a direction where we are looking for it. So, don't just use APIs, come back to us to discover the issues, come back to us and challenge us to do more.
Incidentally, our domain is retail and payments only.
I beg your pardon?
Retail and payment.
Yeah. No, I didn't get you.
I said, incidentally, our domain is retail and
payment.
payments.
So we can work towards it. See, domain is again, a glossary is a very simple words to these words. Like, a typical organization came to us to say that I want to translate the website. Now, on all English website, home is the word which is there. Now, if it is translated correctly, it should be ghar. But ghar on website is not right? It has to be mukprasht. Now, that is the glossary which needs to get. So we picked up those words and did the glossary. Now, come to another scenario. I changed that particular word at ghar, at home, for the mukprasht thing. Now, if it is a real estate company, home is appearing everywhere else. Right? So it's a complex problem when you're trying to actually do this, because we all did the work in English, and then now we are trying to translate it. And in English, a word has different meaning in different contexts, so in all the languages. But in English, it is more prominent. And we also have used colloquial kind of languages where we have, used different things. So there is a certain set of journey. So when you're embarking on this particular area, you have to actually accept that you're in a journey, not in a, the end result will not come out so easily. It will require a month, 2 months struggle with us.
So one last question.
Yeah.
Can we also incorporate Middle Eastern African languages on this platform?
See, our mandate currently and what we are funded for is the 22 languages which are there in the country, right? Obviously, the African countries have approached and are approaching us, and there are various organizations in the country who want to utilize this for the betterment of the society. So I guess those things will come up. There are at G20 what we demonstrated that we can integrate with one language with the foreign language also. So if there are language models available, with other people, we can integrate it. So that's how we can, as of now, provide it. But sooner or later, this technology is going to go out as a DPI to other countries as well.
As you said about the natural language processing and recognition, so way back in 2008, 9, 10, I was heading the project of 139 Indian Railways. So where we use the Nuance, the company Nuance, which is now owned by IBM, the world's best speech recognition engine, and the accuracy level of vernacular language particularly was not more than 82%, which we found, because from distance to distance, the same word is spoken in a different way. So there are a lot of difficulties, a lot of misunderstanding. IVR was responding in a wrong way. So all those things we were not able to, so we had to close down that particular speech recognition system. Is there any way that you are using right now, as you said that vernacular language is being used and villagers are asking questions. So is there any accuracy level which are higher than this, or any application that you're using to correct it, AI application?
See, obviously, the technology today helps us to do more than what perhaps, you were ahead of time at that point in time. But technology allows us to do more than what it allowed at that point in time. The good part of it is, or the bad part of it, both of them go together. The good part of it is that as the data gets enriched, the model gets better, right? So while we have, trained the model on certain set of data sets and languages, the effort to collect more data is on, and those you have been hearing in the newspapers and otherwise. So I think we would be in a position to cross that bridge. Currently, we have implemented it in UP, same thing, but on 112, right? And we are observing how we are performing. Similarly, we have to observe and say where we are also attempting to see if we can translate and transliterate live speeches of at least the Honorable Prime Minister and Honorable President, and there are nuances with that. See, speech again is a very wide subject. It developed with humans 7,000, 10,000 years back, before we started actually talking about it. So the way you speak, the way you pause, the way your tonality does, conveys a lot of things which the computer still has to gain up. But the normal, question and answers, I think we have crossed that bridge, and there are a lot of use cases which are now visible and available, which we are doing. Even with Federal Bank, we are going to launch a product on the Global FinTech Festival, Indian Bank, HDFC. All of these are looking at it. So when the idea is when we reach to private sector and we reach banks and they start using it, that is the right testament. Because there the I going wrong once hurts you multiple times, and hence you will be always after us to, give the better service which is there. So it is important that, private sector, banks, these people start using the technology, because that's the right test of the technology which happens.
So there, I had a suggestion to Nuance at that time, that why don't we have an interpolatory predictive model where when the word is spoken by the caller, there's a library of words, similar words, and predictably and with an interpolatory model, it will
Hot
pick
words.
up the right word.
Yeah, so that's what we have implemented in our payment system. The NPCI is actually capturing the hot words, what you're saying, and discovering the intent. And, once the intent is recognized, it moves through that. So that's something which we have implemented in NPCI. Okay. We have some more opportunities to implement that system, and it will really help if we are able to get some opportunities to do proof of concept there, because a use case can only be perfected through these things.